speak? Yes, because there's someone in Hawaii who wished he could join, but the time difference made that very difficult. So I hope you're all okay with that. Let's see, where are we? Yes, so this is the program for today. We'll dive deeper in the topic of water quality. As you can see, we'll start off with some short introductions, but I will also be introducing the speakers when they're about to speak. We'll get started with providing you some information about Food Tech Africa and the Aquaculture Academy. And of course, the topic of water quality will be introduced along with the online curriculum and the course we are providing to you. Then we will dive deeper into possible interventions for managing your water quality. And of course, we want to give you the space to ask your questions and to get in touch with all the wonderful speakers we have today. So to answer all your questions, we will divide the group into breakout rooms, depending on the group size. And these sessions are with at least one of the speakers in your group to make sure you can ask all the questions you want. During the presentations themselves, you can type into the chat box, but we'll be muting everyone to make sure we can all hear what the presenters are saying and to reduce all the background noise. We'll close off in a plenary form, and we aim to round off at around 1 p.m., but that's rather flexible. There are some people joining the waiting room still, so no worries. For those of you who've actually applied to the Best Farmer competition, first of all, thank you. And we've received many, very valuable applications, and our jury is determining who will be the finalists right now, actually, and we'll be announcing the finalists next week. All right, today we're joined by a very nice team, ready to tell you more about managing water quality. And I'll introduce the speakers when they start speaking, just so you know who is talking right now. My name is Florine Kremer. I'm your moderator today, and I work as a project manager at Larive International in the Netherlands. This is a Netherlands-based consulting firm who does a lot of work in agri-food in East Africa, among other regions. I'm also the main contact for the Aquaculture Academy and the Best Farmer competition. So any questions you have, you'll see my name and my email address, and always feel free to reach out. Let's see, we'll start off today actually with Erick, Ivo, and Patrick. So I'll give them an introduction first. Let's see if they're all able to join. Yes, they are. Good. So Erick, he will be joining us today. He did his bachelor's in fisheries and aquaculture management at the University of Nairobi, and then a professional course on aquaculture farming systems with a focus on RAS systems. He then started managing the RAS demonstration farm in Kenya for 3 years and joined Egerton University in 2019 for a master in limnology. His current thesis is on the efficiency of RAS in Kenya. He is now also the aquaculture project manager at Lattice Aqua. That's his organization, also a part of this whole workshop, so I'll give some background on that. Lattice Aqua is a Kenyan-based entity, a subsidiary actually of Lattice Consulting and Larive, the one I work for. And over the past 7 years, Lattice has been highly involved in the East African aquaculture sector through research, training, and business development. Lattice Aqua is also one of the founding members of Food Tech Africa, a project that Ivo will be telling you a lot about today. And still on Erick, he will be introducing you today to water quality. Then there's Ivo. Ivo van der Lee did a study in Wageningen, also a master in aquaculture at the Wageningen University, same as me actually. And he also works at Lattice Aqua. He has also been an aquaculture manager in Ethiopia, running the first commercial fish farm of the country, where they did training staff, improving local extrusion line for aqua feed production. And now he works as a technical project manager at Lattice Aqua, and he is a technical expert for the projects of both Larive and Lattice most of the time. Today, he will be here to introduce Food Tech Africa and the Aquaculture Academy to you, but he also has a lot of technical background, just so you know that. Then there's Patrick Maina. He completed his bachelor in aquatic biology at the Egerton University in Kenya, and now he is the assistant farm manager at Kamuthanga Fish Farm. He manages the hatchery as well as the overall operations of the farm. And today he will be introducing you to water quality. All right, this is all my speaker set. And let's see, I think Ivo, you're up first.
Yeah, thank you, Florine. So before we get in the topic of today, which is water quality, I indeed want to give a brief introduction on FoodTech Africa and Aquaculture Academy. Well, FoodTech Africa is a public-private partnership between the partners that you see in the slide. It's established in 2012, and together they aim to establish a fully integrated value chain in aquaculture in East Africa. Well, the idea came because farmers mentioned that they could not make a profit with their fish farm on the local market, even though there was actually a big demand for fish as the harvests in Lake Victoria were declining. There's a lot of potential in East Africa for fish farming, but it was very difficult to get the necessary inputs and equipment, such as feed, production systems, etc. So the partners together, they decided that they would get this fully integrated value chain in order to make it more easy for the sector to get the necessary inputs and to unlock the potential. So they have everything they need to grow. Well, over the years, FoodTech Africa has done many things, and I will discuss them in a bit. But first, I want to show a short video about what Kamuthanga Fish Farm has achieved in partnership with FoodTech Africa.
If you drive around Nairobi or walk around Nairobi, it's very difficult to get local, fresh fish. So we saw this as an opportunity. We realized that if we're going to do this, we'd have to do an approach that covers the whole value chain.
The partnership FoodTech Africa brings over 13 partners together with a different background in aquaculture.
We actually provided a solution for mid-sized businesses to enter fish farming. The approach to partnerships they had was very win-win.
Kamuthanga farmers are proud to be the first farm in Africa to be awarded ARSO certificate.
Kamuthanga farm uses a recirculatory aquaculture system to produce a lot of fish in a very small area using minimum resources. This is the most modern way of growing fish.
Quality of feed is quite critical for farmers. If you don't know how to grow your fish well, then you won't realize the benefits at the end of the day.
The other target we had was training, and this one I really loved.
We identify what are the challenges these farmers are facing. So we bring these farmers together, then we organize trainings, and it's been very successful in terms of food security, helping that person to get food on the table. It's something that's quite fulfilling.
So thank you. So we just saw a very nice image of what Kamuthanga has achieved, but as I said, FoodTech Africa did more. So like Kamuthanga, several, my apologies, several demo farms have been established. Together with that and other projects, almost 600 direct jobs were created and nearly 7,000 indirect jobs. But also, as you can see what was mentioned in the video, more than 1,000 farmers have been trained on practical farming skills. So they would get the necessary tools to improve their farming practice and start making a profit. Besides that, partnerships were established and high quality broodstock and fingerlings were brought to the country. So also farmers could get high quality fish to grow and produce better, higher amount of output. And of course, Unga was created together with FoodTech Africa an extrusion line and is now able to deliver locally produced fish feed to the market. Well, all the progress that we've made with FoodTech Africa, we analyzed, and what we currently think is the biggest constraint for the fish farming sector in East Africa is the lack of vocational training. Can we go to the next slide? Thank you. So in order to close, as I said, the lack of vocational training we think is the biggest constraint. The reason why we think this is that we get approached by many farmers asking us how they can manage, how they should manage the fish farm and how they can make it profitable. Well, in order to close this gap, we came up with the Aquaculture Academy. Aquaculture Academy will aim to close this gap. So practical and theoretical trainings will be given to fish farmers, extension workers, graduates, and other professionals that are interested to learn what is needed and what it takes to manage a fish farm and to make it profitable. Well, the good thing about Aquaculture Academy is it gets theoretical classes, so farmers can get the necessary background needed to manage the farm, but we also teach practical skills. So we're gonna have 2 campuses. One will be Gilbert in the Homa Bay, and the other one will be Kamuthanga Fish Farm, which you saw in the video, based in Machakos. Gilbert, they currently produce fish in ponds and cages, so we can get trainees there to learn practical how to deal with these production systems. Kamuthanga Fish Farm, as you see, they use recirculation systems, and we can teach trainees to operate these as well. The Aquaculture Academy will be launched the 7th of May officially, and we look forward to receiving many trainees after that.
Okay, thank you, Ivo. I think we're ready for you, John Erick.
Thanks, Florine, for the introductions, and Ivo for having introduced the Aquaculture Academy and bringing everyone to light about the future plans. So just so you know, every participant of the workshop today, whatever you're going to be trained on today is just a snapshot of more trainings to come, because the Aquaculture Academy will be based on practical aquaculture training. So upon the launch in May, we'll have so many trainings around the country. And as Eva said, we have 2 campuses, one in Eastern Kenya and one in Western. Otherwise, we'll be involved with farmers all around the country. So I'll just go ahead and introduce today's topic, which is water quality. So the Kamuthanga team and Skretting and Unga are here today to just, give us more information on water quality and relate that to feed management, because I think we all know that that is very important for commercial aquaculture. So allow me to introduce the topic. Now, water is a major differentiating factor between fish and other terrestrial animals. Now, we know very well that we walk on land, fish live in water, so water is always the differentiating factor. Among other factors, it is the main one. Now, fish in itself, I consider it as the animal with the most intimate relationship with its environment. And that's why today we want to basically talk about the fish's environment. So it's I think 100% of the fish external body is in direct contact with its environment. So the relationship is very, very intimate. So for fish to survive and thrive, there has to be water. In essence, good water quality always means good performance. So you don't just need your fish to be healthy and alive, you also need them to perform well, because the essence of commercial aquaculture is productivity. So you don't want to look at the production where you're saying, I've been having my fish for 5 years in the pond. You want to look at how long is it taking you to grow a given amount of fish, because that is going to prove your business case. So we're not just looking at the health, we are also looking at the general performance, which ties to economic values. Next slide, please, Florine. So the highlighted text in green says that the success of agriculture is bound to biological processes. And I think that is the reason as why we are starting our trainings, the Aquaculture Academy, on water quality. Now, if you look at the history of various developments around the world, look at mining, other industrial activities, people have been trying to scale up. But then one thing that remains constant is the fact that the success of any agricultural activity, of which aquaculture falls in this group, is mainly relies on biological processes. So we have to start with the basics. We have to start with how the fish lives, where it lives, what it eats. Because without that, we can't scale up our productions. Without that, there is no aquaculture. And all these processes, the biological processes that I'm talking about, for fish, it is all in the water. And that's why today it's about water quality. And for me, the aquaculture puzzle that I think has to be solved before we start talking about aquaculture, the commercialization of aquaculture in Kenya, and everywhere else around the world it depend on these 4 factors. That is water quality, the general management of the farm, feed and feeding, and the fish biology. And I've highlighted the 2 points that we're going to talk about today, which are very critical to what I call the aquaculture puzzle. That is the water quality, feed, and feeding. Thanks, Florine.
All right, thank you, Erick. I think that's a very good introduction to have. Also, thanks again, Ivo. I will now give the word to Patrick.
Thank you so much. And to continue with that same pace that has been set by the earlier panelists, we are going to discuss about water quality. And as Erick has just explained, it's one of the strongest pillar for aquaculture. And if we are going to do commercial fish farming, we cannot afford to ignore this pillar, because as we all know that this is the environment for the fish. And because we are talking about water, we must have a healthy environment. So there are factors that we have to consider when we are looking into water quality. So the important parameters that we must look into, they include the following. We have the oxygen, which is very critical, temperature, pH, ammonia, nitrite, nitrate, turbidity, salinity, and conductivity. These are the major factors. And I still know that, or we still know that there are others, but these are the most critical parameters that each fish farmer must have a control in their farming process. Next slide, please. So we are going to look at each factor individually and see how it is critical when we are looking at the different culture systems. Like, for example, we know in Kenya, most farmers do pond culturing in Kenya, over 60% of farmers. Then we have a good number of farmers doing cage farming, and a very few number of farmers who are interested in RAS system. But generally, fish farming in Kenya, we have had this issue of water quality for a very long time, and it's an issue that has been neglected, where people have been avoiding to talk about it. But it is timely now that we have platform like this, where we are raising these issues, because they are very important to raise our, or to upscale our fish farming. And as we are going to look at each of these factors, we are going to see how critical it is and how important it is for a farmer to make sure that they are within the range that are required for the specific species they're going to keep. So we are going to start with oxygen. We all know that fish depend on dissolved oxygen. Fish depend on dissolved oxygen, and depending with the culture system that you have, there are factors that affect this dissolved oxygen in your system. Like, for example, in a RAS system, the stocking density in RAS system is a bit high compared to other systems. Like, for example, for pond farmer, we know that you're supposed to put 3 to 4 fish per meter squared. But in a RAS system, the stocking density is over 100. Like in Kamuthanga, we do a stocking density between 110 to 120 fish per meter squared. So you're having a lot of fish within a very small area. So you have to have an extra way of aerating the water so that the fish can get a good source of oxygen. The other thing that is important for RAS system is the diffusion material, because in RAS system, the region where you are releasing your oxygen matters. Simply because the smaller the bubble that you release in the water, the higher the diffusion rate of that oxygen into your water. So the material you use is of importance to consider. The other thing is temperature. We know that when you have high temperatures, the oxygen diffusion goes down. So we have the ranges, and this is an issue we're going to talk about in the next slide, why it's important to remain within the ranges, so that you can also not influence the temperatures you cannot influence the oxygen in your system. So the next thing we're going to talk is on the temperatures. This is an issue that has been forgotten for a very long time. People are farming fish in low temperature ponds or water bodies. Like now, from this graph, you can see that when you have a temperature of 23 degrees, the time that you take for your fish to grow to 500 grams, it will take you more than a year for you to get that fish to 500 grams. But if you grow your fish within a temperature of 27 to 30 degrees, your fish will take around 160 days. So temperature is very important in fish farming. And there are factors that affect this temperature, like in ponds, the source of water. There are people who take water directly from the rivers and pump the water into their ponds, and they are not checking the temperature ranges in that water. So you find that you're growing fish in very low temperature waters, and that will influence your growth factor for the fish. The next slide, please. The other thing that is important to check is the pH. So we know that fish are specific when it comes to pH. We have different fish species doing well in different pH ranges. Like now for tilapia and catfish, they do well in pH range of 6.5 to 8.5. And if you are out of the range, your fish growth will be affected, because all we are talking of is production. We want to make sure that our production is optimum. So you must work within the ranges of each parameters. So like now for our system, the sedimentation system is very important, because it have a direct influence in your pH. When you have a lot of organic matter accumulating in your system, the decomposition of this results to low pH, and this makes you to be out of range. The other thing, like now in cage farming, the site of the farm where you locate your farm, this site, you must be guided by the government bodies or authorities that do the mapping to situate your farm in a region where you are within the range, or there are no external factors that will influence your water quality parameters. And also, it's also very important in RAS system that the pH levels determine the toxicity of ammonia in your system. When you have high pH, because ammonia exists in water in two states, it can be in ammonia or in ammonium. So when you have high pH, ammonia exists in terms of ammonia, which is very toxic to fish. But when you have low pH, it exists in terms of ammonium, which is less toxic to fish. And for ammonia case, this is highly is a parameter that RAS farmers must really be know the range for this parameter, simply because you are stocking a lot of fish in a small area of land. The ammonia goes high, and this will result even to mortality for your fish. Unlike in pond farmers who put a few fish in a small, because the stocking density is low. Here there's no issues of ammonia. Also in cage farming, because of the current, the water current, there's no cases of ammonia. But I have to emphasize that RAS farmers, you must be able to have daily, if not daily, weekly reading of your ammonia, so that you make sure that your fish are safe and they won't die out of ammonia. And this is because ammonia is a direct excrete from fish. The fish themselves excrete ammonia. and you have to come up with ways of removing this ammonia, and you can use bioreactors to remove that. You can also control that by use of pH. You can also do dilution method to make sure that your ammonia level is low. Next slide, please. The other factors that you have to check is the nitrate and the nitrite. For example, in a RAS system, then the nitrite and the nitrates as a result of the bacteria or the biological filtration in a system where the ammonia is converted into nitrite, then to nitrate. But in ponds, you have the algae. The algae controls these levels, and this where we advise farmers that you need to maybe have a flushing schedule where when you have a lot of algae, you can come up with a plan of water exchange to make sure that you control these algae levels. And these algae levels result by the nutrients that are within your system. And in cage farmers, in cage farming, aquatic plants control these levels for the nitrate and the nitrite. So for them, they're not that influenced by these factors. But for us system and pond farmers, this is a factor that you have to consider. Yeah. Next slide, please. Turbidity. Turbidity, this is a measure of how light is a measure of how transparent your water is in terms of does it have suspended solids? Because like we know for tilapia, they are visionary feeders, they feed by seeing. So if you have a very high turbid water with a lot of suspended solids, it can influence your fish not to feed adequately because they're visionary feeders. The other thing is the suspended solids, like in RAS system, they become the breeding grounds for bacteria, other unwanted bacteria. So you have to put this on check, and the quality of feed is one thing that is very important to make sure that is in order, because if you get a poor quality feed that is not a floating pellet feed that will break up into small particles within the water or the culture water, this will result to the high turbidity. And in RAS system, mechanical filtration is very important because this is the point where we control the suspended solids or we filter out this physical matter. For ponds, algae you can have algal blooms, and this will influence the turbidity, whereby your fish with these algal blooms, your fish won't be able to have that feeding rate that is required because they are not well trained, and also they can't see the feed. The other thing for cage farmers, it's not an issue when we have turbidity, because we cannot influence, like for example, the lake, we cannot influence the lake turbidity because of the large water body. The next factor, the next slide, please. So we have talked of the water qualities, all of them that are very critical. So in the training, what is important to note is the key water quality factors that you must be able to put on check, and also the ranges that you must be able to know the ranges. So thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Patrick. All right, well, I think you've all been introduced now to water quality. I've received some questions in the chat box. That's all good. Thank you for that, and we're happy to answer them. The second part of today's presentations is from the people of Skretting, part of NITRITE, and Unga Farm Care East Africa. And both are well-known producers of aqua feed. So we are joined by Mahmoud Haidar. He has a PhD in aquaculture from Wageningen University. He knows Ivo, therefore, because everyone is from Wageningen around here. He's worked for Skretting for nearly 3 years. Before he was a species manager of tilapia, and now he is a manager of nutrition and formulation at Skretting Africa. Also, we have Gilbert Gitamo with a master in aquaculture from the University of Eldoret. He's a director of operations. First, he was at Aqualive Solutions, then at Jumbo Fish. Now he is the technical sales manager at Skretting East Africa. Last but not least, we have Harrison Juma. Harrison also holds an MSc in animal nutrition from Egerton University. And he is now the business development manager at Unga Farm Care East Africa. He's been at Unga for nearly 15 years, and today he will also tell you all about feed management. All right, I am not entirely sure who will start off, but I give you the floor. I think someone is still muted. Gilbert, is that you?
Okay.
Yeah, that's better. We hear you now.
Everybody can hear me now. Yeah, I was saying I'm the one kicking off, and I think as my colleagues John and Patrick have said before, basically what we are doing today is just giving a snapshot of what to expect in the coming days when the Aquaculture Academy picks up. Because when we talk about the issue of water quality, as everybody knows, is a very broad topic that we cannot be able to cover, especially in the limited time that we have today. But we'll try and do our best to be able to basically introduce you to this topic so that then in the coming days we can be able to invite you to join us in the Aquaculture Academy and in such online meetings where we can be able to discuss it extensively and be able to tackle most of the challenges and the issues that most of our farmers are facing. So when we talk about water quality, as my colleagues have said, when you want to go basically into aquaculture, everything basically begins with, as we say, everything begins with water. We say it begins with water because water quality and water quantity become very critical for any farmer that is intending to go into aquaculture. The reason why they become very critical is because as you'll see in my next slides, is that the fish that we want to culture, they entirely depend to do all the activities in water. Unlike the land animals, this is everything that they do is happening inside water. And that's why that becomes a very important ecosystem for them. And we need to ensure that that ecosystem is well maintained, that ecosystem is well taken care of, so that then the kind of fish that we want to culture in those kind of ecosystems can be able to thrive and do very well. Next slide, please. For fish, as I've said, they perform all their bodily functions in water. And when we talk about bodily functions, we are talking about breathing, we are talking about feeding and growing, we are talking about excretion. We are talking about a very important factor is maintaining the salt balance as well as reproducing. And because of that particular reason, we find that because they are doing everything in water, it becomes very critical that we maintain very good water quality so that then at the end of the day, we don't end up having the challenges that we sometimes experience from most of our farmers who are having health issues because as Patrick has rightly put it, when some of the chemicals that are available in water are interfered with, they change into another component that we do not want to have in the water. And by so doing, you find that it creates a very good environment where other pathogens can be able to come in and be able to thrive. And at the end of the day, we are having health challenges. And also, since we want our fish to grow, we want them to feed well, we want them to have a good drive, and we are talking about performance in aquaculture, you find that the water quality again becomes very critical. Because unless the water quality is good, you find that most of the times we have our fish not getting fed, not eating, and they are not eating, they are not enjoying the environment and we they are thriving in. Then at the end of the day, you find that their performance is hampered. They are not growing. Next slide, please. And today, for me, basically, I just want to talk very briefly about how we can be able to intervene when we face some of the water quality challenges. In a very brief way, basically, as I said, basically to introduce you to this, the three main challenges that or problems that occur in fish culture ponds, especially the fish culture ponds, is you find that in most cases, you find that low dissolved oxygen is one of the main problems that we are experiencing. At the same time, also you find that there is a toxic metaporate accumulation and this excess phytoplankton production happening in our ponds. And when this happens, you find that the next slide, you find that basically for the farmer and for that kind of ecosystem, you find that there will be high ammonia that ends up accumulating because of the metaporites. Also, you find that there will be low dissolved oxygen that will also take place, and depending on what factor is affected, you find that there will be either high or low pH. And these are actually some of the main challenges that when you speak to most of our pond farmers, these are the challenges they find that they face, especially more so for farmers who are doing land-based aquaculture. Land-based aquaculture, I'm talking about farmers who are doing Aten ponds, Raina ponds, farmers who are running the RAS systems, farmers who are running the raceway systems. These are some of the most common challenges that they go through every day. And for them, because they have control on what they can be able to do, we advise especially that they can be able to intervene in two ways. One of the ways that they can be able to intervene is by flushing the water. And another way that they can be able to intervene is by having aeration where they can. By so doing, you find that at the end of the day, they can be able to have a good water quality and their fish will be happy. And if the fish will be happy, it means then the issues that we are talking about, the issues, performance issues in terms of growth, can be able to take place, and the farmer at the end of the day can be able to make profit. Next question.
Yeah, you broke up a little bit during your last sentence. So if you could perhaps repeat that, just the last bit.
Yeah, I was saying we can be able to, two interventions especially, you find that the fish can be able to enjoy living in a good environment, and if they enjoy living in a good environment, then the issues that actually challenge farmers, these are the issues of health issues, diseases, all that kind of stuff, and also performance issues in terms of growth, we can be able to tackle them. So the interventions that I'll basically today introduce you to, one of them is pond aeration. And we'll talk about pond aeration here. We're talking about ensuring that we have sufficient oxygen levels in the pond. And as Patrick said, when you look at the oxygen levels, basically, you find that they are basically dependent on water temperature. If we have high water temperatures, you find that there will be reduced oxygen. Also, they are very dependent on the stocking rates for the aquaculture species that we want to culture, depending whether you are culturing, especially for our Kenyan case, we are culturing tilapia, you are culturing catfish. So the rate at which you are advised to stock If you stock appropriately, or if you stock more than what you are advised, by that, then at the end of the day, you can be able to have raw oxygen levels taking place. Also, the sort of oxygen is also dependent on the salinity and the amount of aquatic vegetation, which is, I think, something that in the coming days we can be able to discuss very effectively, so that we can be able to see how best we can be able to maintain aquatic vegetation, because as Patrick has said, it has a big role to play in ensuring that we are able to generate enough oxygen, especially for pond farmers. And why we are so much concerned about oxygen and why we want to aerate is because other than just the fish that are available in that kind of ecosystem, we find that also there is a lot of competition from the other organisms that are living in that particular environment. We are talking about bacteria, we are talking about the phytoplanktons, we are talking about the zooplanktons. Decomposition is taking place. There's large organic materials that as they undergo decomposition, they also consume oxygen. So there's intense competition for oxygen in that particular ecosystem. And as I've said, the best way we can be able to take care of this is aeration. Next slide, please. And when I talk about aeration, basically, we can be able to intervene in, sometimes when we talk about aeration, some people think about it in a very complicated way, but for me, especially for the farmers that we are interacting with, we can create aeration by basically ensuring that we have a fountain, which basically can be able to increase the sort of oxygen into the water by ensuring that there's sufficient or efficient contact of water and air. And by so doing, you could have aerated your water. But if you can be able to afford, then you can be able to go for other mechanical equipment that are available. Like we have pumps, now they're available in the market, and anybody who wants to do aeration can be able to acquire those pumps and can be able to effectively aerate. And by doing aeration, one of the things that happens is that you can be able to mix and circulate the water so that the raw dissolved oxygen water can be more efficiently aerated. This is very important because when you go into a pond, in most cases, you find that there are what we call pockets of oxygen in the various parts of the pond. So you are aerating, basically what we are doing is that we are mixing that water and breaking down those ponds, those pockets, so that then the pond can be efficiently aerated, because then the fish are occupying the whole water column. It's very important. At the same time, also, when you do aeration, you find that you are able to break down unwanted, especially bacteria, which if we have to accumulate, we are able to lead to other challenges like health issues. We are able to reduce algae by doing a simple thing as just aerating. At the same time, also very important is that you are able to strip off some toxic gases, like we talk about CO2, which has a big effect when you talk about the pH. We are talking about hydrogen sulfide, we are talking about ammonia, which if we have to accumulate for quite some time can be able to cause mortalities in fish. And also, as I've said, when we aerate, you are able to stabilize the pH because you are removing the CO2. And when you're removing the CO2 from the water, then you are able to reduce the chances of carbonic acid forming in the water. Next slide, please. Yeah, also, other than for oxygen, also you find that it's also very important, other than just aerating, also we renew the water or we flush off some of the water. By so doing, you find that we are able to reduce some of the toxins that have accumulated. At the same time, also we are able to lower, in most cases, the pH, because especially when you find that we are having high pH, one of the things that we advise farmers to do is that they need to flush that water. It's very important. By so doing, you find that you can be able to reduce that pH. But if you are having a low pH, in most cases, we advise you to basically lime with agricultural limestone or to fertilize the pond so that we are able to promote the algae growth. And by so doing, then at the end of the day, you find that you can be able to ensure that the water quality that we are looking for is well maintained. And as also said, when you flush out some of the water, you find that you reduce the level of ammonia that is likely to occur in the systems, especially the production system. And by so doing, when you reduce it, then you find that you're able to give your fish a good environment that they can be able to enjoy living in. And if they are enjoying living in it, then they can be able to perform very well in terms of feeding well and growing much more faster. Next slide. So when we talk about flushing and aerating, basically what we are trying to look at and what we'll be able to do in the coming days is that we'll be able to take you through, as farmers, the importance of doing that. And we can be able to give more details basically in the coming days how one is able to do that. But ideally, the essence of flushing is that we want to reduce the ammonia levels. We want to ensure that the pond is aerated. We want to, by aerating or flushing, we also want to ensure that the fish are feeding well. The stocking density has to be taken care of. We are able to control the plant and algae growth. And as Mahmoud will talk about it later, if also you want to reduce the ammonia levels, you can also now be able to use probiotics that are available in the market. Patrick talked about water turbidity, and I think I also could want to strictly just mention that it's very important also that when we are aerating or flushing the water, we want to ensure that the water is not so turbid, in the sense that then we can be able to ensure that there is a good penetration of light. And as you know, when we have a good penetration of light, photosynthesis can be able to take place in the water. And when that happens, we can be able to maintain a very good algal bloom that can be able to take care of ammonia by feeding on the ammonia that's being generated, or that can be able to ensure that we are producing sufficient levels of oxygen, dissolved oxygen in the water, which is very important for the fish to be able to thrive in. Next slide, please. And these are some of the water quality recommendations that we recommend, especially for tilapia. And Patrick has basically given a summary of the same, but basically it's very important for me to mention a few of them. And one of them is temperature. This is 25 to 30, not 5 to 30. It's 25 to 30. pH 6.5 to 8.5. Oxygen, we are talking about 4 to 6 milligrams per liter. And also very important is the ammonia, where we are talking about 0.02, less than 0.02 milligrams per liter. I think I'll stop at that so that Mahmoud can be able to take care of the next. If you have any questions, I think we can be able to answer them. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Gilbert. There's actually one question which you might be able to answer now from Stephen. He's asking, pond water varies over the course of a 24-hour. How is this variation related to the light intensity?
Come up again, kindly.
So pond water varies over the course of 24 hours. How is this variation related to the light intensity?
It's very important, yes, that we ensure that the water is not turbid by ensuring that there is a good penetration of light, because as he has rightly put it, it varies within 24 hours, but during the day, as you know, if we are having clear water, it means there can be able to be enough generation of especially oxygen that is required to maintain the fish during the dark hours when the plants are consuming that same oxygen. So we need to strike a very good balance in terms of the kind of algae that we are allowed to thrive in our fish ponds. I think that's something that we can go discuss in further details as we continue this discussion. But it's very important in the sense that we have a good algal bloom, so that then photosynthesis occurs during the day and ensures that there is sufficient oxygen that can be able to last throughout the 24 hours.
Okay, thank you. Like I said before, there's plenty of room towards the end of the presentation when you can actually talk and discuss this with the speakers. So I'll just give the word now to Mahmoud. And
Yes.
thank you, Gilbert.
Yes.
You.
Thank you, Gilbert. Thank you, Patrick and Ivo, for the nice introduction first, and then going into some details about water quality. I will start from the point where everybody ends. Water quality is really important to measure. And for that reason, it's really important to keep data recording. So data recording, it's a piece of sheet of paper that you can write down what is happening during the day, and which can tells you when you have to take action. And I give just a very simple example here. If you look at the NO2, the nitrite, on that particular date at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, I measured it at 2. Is 2 a high value? Yes, it's very high value. Otherwise, if you just measure it and you don't put it in a data recording sheet, then you will forget it. They will forget to take action. Once you have it there, either you or your the farm manager can take action, or other employees in the farm can take action directly. So if nitrite will increase that much, it means that the fish will not eat as normal. And this can affect also not only the feed intake, but it can affect the well-being of the fish. So what to do? And this is what I'm going to handle in the next slides when it's related to feed intake and feeding of the fish. Next, please. So I'm going to talk about feed management in the farm and how feed management relates to water quality and how water quality relates to feed management. It's a vice versa relation. You cannot improve your water quality without a good feed management, and your feed management, a good feed management will improve your water quality. Next one, please. The first point that I want to draw your attention to is the fish lives in water, as everybody have indicated. They do all the activities in water. So if they want to grow, they have to eat, and feeding is really important for them. But what is more important is what quality of feed I am providing these fish, because the quality of the feed will determine the quality of the water quality. So the question is, what is equality? Equality is the degree of excellence of something. It's to make it as excellent as possible. So in order to produce a good quality into product, in this case, a fish that looks nice, that tastes nice, the fish has to feed on a very good, high quality diet. Then in that regard, this will improve water quality and improve your end product at the same time. Next, please. When talking about feed, there is 2 types of feed, and I think most of the farmers and most of the students and most of the participants here, they know about extruded feed and pelleted feed. And this is the first point. When I want to improve my water quality, I have to choose either I want to use extruded feed or pelleted feed. And here it comes the question, which one is better off for my water quality? And a simple answer is, of course, it's extruded feed is more superior than pelleted feed. Why it's important? Because when you feed an extruded floating feed to the fish, you're just feeding the pond or feeding your tank, and then you can see the fish comes out, they eat, and then they go down, and then they come up, they eat, and they come down. So you can observe exactly what is happening in the system. You can observe that you can see that all your pellets are eaten and they are not just drowning or they are sinking to the bottom of the tank or the pond. Then it's not eaten by the fish, which will affect water quality. And this is a problem when you feed a pelleted sinking feed, because most of the pelleted sinking feed, they will just sink in the water, go to the bottom, you cannot see them, and they will start to disintegrate and they will affect water quality. Extruded feed, on the other side, it's very highly digestible compared to pelleted feed. And this is related to the extrusion process itself, which makes the nutrients like starch, protein, more available to the fish, so they will digest it more, and then this means less organic material is ending up in your water system, good water quality. However, in pelleted feed, it's lower digestibility, let's say, which will at the end increases a bit the organic load. Another important aspect of a very good high quality feed is that the extruded feed is highly stable. So it means if you just throw them in the water, they will stay intact for at least 30 to 45 minutes. And it's really important because if the pellet starts to disintegrate, then you are polluting the water, you are increasing the amount of unwanted substances. It will increase the ammonia level. So feeding a stable pellet is really the first step into improving your water quality. And at the same time, because of the what we call it during the extrusion, we have what is called the gelatinization. So it means that the pellets, it comes together. Gelatinization, the starch will be pop up. They will make a kind of effect on the pellets that it keeps the nutrients within the pellets. So the amount of nutrients leaching to the water, it's really minimized with this extruded feed, which is, you cannot find it in the pelleted feed that has high nutrients leaching. Nutrients leaching, it means that it's going to the water, polluting the water, making the water quality worse, but at the same time, the fish is not eating these nutrients, it's just lost. So you are losing these nutrients to the water. Next, please. As I said, the first step for a good water quality is to feed a high quality feed. And when you look at the feed that you have to feed the fish, so if we look at tilapia, it's important that you buy the feed that is specifically designed for your species. So I see some farmers sometimes that they feed the chicken feed to the tilapia feed, or the tilapia feed to the chicken. This doesn't work because each feed has its own specific requirements of nutrients. A high quality feed is highly digestible. It means that you will, at the end, you will increase the growth of your fish, the performance of the fish, but at the same time, you will save your water from being polluted. And it's important also to feed all stages with their designated feed. So if you have starter feed, then you feed the fish with a starter feed. You don't feed the fish with a broodstock diet or with a grower. So it's important that for each stage, you feed the right size of the pellets and the right nutrient requirements of the pellets. And in high quality feed, like Skretting feed, it's always providing the highly digestible nutrients in it that is needed for good growth, but at the same time, improving your water quality. Next, please. So why physical pellet quality is important? Let's touch first the topic of uniform particle size. So if you have a uniform particle size, it means that your pellets that you feed your fish with a high quality feed, it will be the same particle size. This will end up on optimal feed consumption. All your fish will have the same opportunity to eat the same amount of feed with the same size of feed. This means that if the fish is eating all the ration that you are giving, this will lower the feed waste, and as a consequence, it will be a better water quality. The other aspect of a good physical pellet quality is that the pellets of the extruded floating feed will be highly stable. As I mentioned before, it will not disintegrate that fast in the water, and you are improving your water quality. As I mentioned before, a good high quality feed also will have less nutrients leaching to the water. So all the nutrients is going to fish to grow and improving water quality. Next, please. all of us as fish farmers, we care at the end about the fish performance, and we always hear about FCR, so the feed conversion ratio. The better the feed, the lower the feed conversion ratio, the better the performance of your fish. Now, FCR is affected by many factors: the feed, the fish, but what is really important, the water quality, and the most important factor, the person who is feeding the fish. So I call it the person feeding management. If you are a good feeder, then you will have higher performance of the fish, but at the same time, you will have the perfect water quality. Next, please. I would just give a kind of some feeding recommendations or feeding practices that you can do at your farm to improve your water quality. First of all, if you measure your water quality and your water quality is not optimal, adapt your feeding. So you have to judge if I have low oxygen or I have high oxygen, what I have to do now. If I have more than 5 milligrams of oxygen, then I will feed as normal. While if it's 3, then I will not feed as normal. So I have to adapt my feeding because the fish will not eat all the rations that you are to give them. And this means that your water quality will become worse. One of the recommendation is to feed your fish according to appetite. So according to their behavior. So you are feeding your fish, you are on top of your pond or tank or cage, and you are starting feeding your fish. So you have to kind of connect with your fish to look at the behavior of the fish. If they want to eat more, give them more. If they don't want to eat more, just stop feeding or reduce it and then come back again to feed them again. Don't overfeed, because overfeeding will cause a lot of problems to your water quality. There is other type of feeding, because this type of feeding when you are hand feeding, but some farmers, they use what we call it demand feeders. It's a great way of feeding. You just weigh the feed, you put it in the demand feeders, and then the fish will eat as long as they want. However, it's really important to check these demand feeders on a daily basis to be sure that it's functioning well, because I saw it in some farms. They just put the feed and then they come after 1-2 days to look at it, and there was no feed, or maybe it was malfunctioning, so the water quality worsened, and then they had a lot of mortalities there. Another aspect that will help you to improve your water quality is to know what is the biomass right now in your cage or in your pond, because what you are going to feed is based on what the growth is right now in the pond. So it's really important to sample the fish every 3 to 4 weeks to know what is your weight of the fish, and if you want to calculate how much amount of feed you have to give, then you have an approximation. Let's say that I have to feed today 4% of body weight. However, if you don't do it and you keep feeding 1% or 2%, either you will be overfeeding or underfeeding, and at the end, this will affect the water quality. Try to distribute the feeding throughout the day, so from 2 to 4 times each day, if possible, of course, at the same place and at the same time, because fish, they are used to feed on the same place and on the same time, which makes better feeding practices for the fish. You will avoid overfeeding, and this means you'll avoid any issues with water quality. Now the question, if I have a pond and I want to feed my fish, where is the best location that I can feed my fish? Of course, you will feed your fish at the best location in the pond where the water quality are the best, higher oxygen, lower ammonia. So, and this would be near to the inlet of the water, either in the tank or in the pond, because the fish there, they will eat more efficiently. You will reduce feed wastage, and this will at the end improve your water quality management. Next, please. As I said before, when using feed demanders, please place them the same as hand feeding. You feed at the inlet. The feed demanders also, you put them near to the inlet of your pond, of your system, because it's a good water quality. So try to avoid any shallow spots and try to put your feed demanders. And when you are feeding with hand, try to be as far as possible from the dike of the pond, because the fish will not come to the edges or the dike that often, and then you will lose these pellets, and it will affect your water quality. Another important aspect, it's a proper pellet size for the fish stage. You have to shift your pellet sizes as the fish grow. And I will give you a kind of nice tip for you. When you move from one pellet size to a bigger pellet size, so let's say from 2 millimeter to 3 millimeter, it's better always to mix both of them, the 2 and 3, for 2-3 days. Then the smaller fish will have a good opportunity to reach these smaller pellets, and the big fish will have the opportunity to eat the big pellets. Then you are training your fish that you are moving from smaller pellet to a bigger pellet, which will help from overfeeding or leftovers or feed waste in the pond, improving your water quality. Next, please. As we said before, there is many ways of controlling and trying to protect your water quality, either through water test qualities that you measure your water quality on a daily basis. You can use the feed management, but also you can use what is called probiotics. Probiotics, it's a kind of bioremediation for the water that helps the fish and helps the water quality. What is probiotic? Next, please. If we talk about healthy environment, if you have a very nice, healthy environment of water quality, this will maximize the profitability of you as a farmer, but also it will increase the welfare of the animal, and it means that it's a good performance. So if you look at the farm management as all, it's not only water management, it's not only feed management, and it's not only farm management. You have to combine all of them within a holistic approach, we call it. If you have a good water management combined with feed management, combined with a good farm management, you will be highly profitable farmer. You will have a better growth of your fish. Next, please. And here comes also, how can I make my water quality better? Feed management, testing, I can use probiotics. What is probiotics? Probiotics is a combination of beneficial bacteria and micronutrients. These bacteria is going to be added to your water, and through these bacteria, it will improve your water quality in terms of ammonia, nitrite, and nitrate, but also in terms of organic material. Next, please. This is the product of probiotic. We call it Aquacare. It's coming from Skretting. As you see, it begins all with water. As Gilbert said, as Patrick said, as everybody said here, it all begins with water. So this Aquacare product, it's a probiotic. It's a set of products which is dedicated to improve the water needs for fish. Next, please. What is the main function of Aquacare, of these probiotics? It's control of microbial load within your water system, improvement of water quality, and improvement of pond soil or the pond bottom. Next, please. How it's going to control my microbial load. When you add Aquacare or the probiotics, these probiotics microbe will outcompete with other pathogenic bacteria in the pond. So you add these beneficial bacteria, then they will outcompete about feed sources, and by time they will eliminate these pathogenic bacteria, and the good bacteria that is added will dominate your system. Also, because you have a good bacteria, pathogenic bacteria is less, so you don't need to do a lot of water exchange. And adding water to the system, it means that you add more pathogenic bacteria. So water exchange reduction will reduce the new microbes that can go into the water system. These bacteria, they will compete, as I said, with pathogenic bacteria. Either they will kill them or they make it less dominant in the system. So you have a healthy, fresh water for your fish. Next, please. The second target is to improve water quality through reducing ammonia. When you add these probiotics, these microbes of the probiotics is going to improve water quality by actively utilizing ammonia, nitrite, nitrate, and phosphorus. So when you have no problem with ammonia in your system anymore because of the probiotics, so the question why I have to exchange waters, then there will be no need, or that it will be minimal exchange of water. And this is really important in areas where there is limited water resources. If you add the probiotic, it means that the ammonia would be at a minimal level. You don't have to exchange water again, and the fish performance is still at high quality. This is a trial that we have done with Aquacare, and within 24 hours, the NH3, the ammonia, just dropped from a harmful level to around 0 within 1 day of adding these probiotics. Next, please. Yeah, next. Another important function or benefit of these probiotics is that they can improve the pond soil. During the growth cycle in the pond, you are adding feed. There is a lot of feces that is accumulating, so there is a lot of organic material accumulating at the bottom. So these bacteria, they are going to target these organic material. They will start eating them, and with time, the amount of organic material will be less and less and less. And here you can see a picture on the left, on the right. It's with Aquacare and before Aquacare. Before Aquacare, there was a very high thickness of organic material. However, with using Aquacare, this organic material disappeared. What does it mean for you as a farmer, pond farmer? It means that in the next cycle, I don't have to go into preparation of the ponds. So you will reduce the labor, you will reduce the costs of preparing your pond in the next cycle. There will be less pollution, and it will ensure a better animal absorption of nutritional substances, because it's better water quality, improved water quality, so the fish is living in a healthy environment where they only take the nutrients for growth, so you will have higher performance. Next, please. Yep. And this is the results of good water quality, better feed management, and using probiotics. Happy water, it means happy fish and happy farmer at the end. And this is our aim, that all the fish farmers, if they apply the right sets of water quality management, feed management, and farm management, they will happy, as you can see right now here. Thank you.
Thank you. That's a very nice slide to end with. Thank you very much. I think that was a really good presentation. And we actually received a question from Stephen, directed to you. Under microbial loads, the question is, what is the connection between stress condition and development of fish diseases?
Yes. Whenever you have bad water quality conditions, let's say, this means the fish will have lower immunity, and with lower immunity, either because of underfeeding or because of lower water quality, then there will be a big chance that these opportunistic pathogenic bacteria will affect the fish because of this stress, and then they can cause diseases.
All right, thank you. I hope that answers his question. If not, you'll be in a breakout room at the end of the session to answer any remaining questions. Okay. I think we're moving on to Juma. While he's unmuting, maybe Mahmoud, you can answer, where can we get Aquacare products?
Gilbert? Gilbert can answer this question.
Okay.
In Kenya, we are basically at a stage where we are working on the registration of Aquacare into our Kenyan market. Then after it's registered, we'll be able to do, first of all, before we are able to release it to the market, we wanted to do some validation trials, which we have planned that are likely to take place in the next few coming weeks. And once that is done, then everybody can be able to find our Aquacare from our local distributor. This is Unga Farm Care. So in the next 1 or 2 months, you can be able to have the product in the market, in Kenyan market.
I think that's answered the question. Very nice. Is there also a negative effect on the system with Aquacare? Another question that came in.
There is no any negative effect on the pond system, and it's really important to mention that Aquacare cannot be used in a cage system, because in a cage system, which is in a lake, it's an open system, so you cannot use it. It can be used for hatcheries, nurseries, broodstock, and grow out ponds, and also RAS. And there is no any negative effect on the pond system at all.
Right, thank you. I think that's it regarding the questions of Aquacare. Juma, are you ready to go?
Yes, certainly. Thanks, thanks, Mahmoud, and all the other speakers. I hope that you can be able to hear me clearly.
Yes, we are. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so I'm going to talk about briefly how the aquafeed situation is in Kenya, and I think it will also give a picture of East Africa as well, and where you can be able to get good quality feed. So next slide, please, Florine.
You got it.
Yeah, there it is. So, I mean, I just couldn't resist putting out this slide out there. It just shows we as Unga Farm Care, and I believe a representation also of the East African region as well, how much feed we produce. If you look at aquafeeds, the yellow segment is only 2% of what's being produced out there, but it will also paint a picture of how much aqua is being produced in the region. But on the right-hand side, if you look at how much resources you need to produce a kg of protein from those different species, you will realize that aqua is the most efficient utilizer of resources in terms of giving you back protein on the table. So as the resources continue to become scarce, I do believe that we have the answer of what needs to happen in the coming years for us to be able to continue feeding this growing population. Next slide, Florine. So if we come down to aqua, I mean, in East Africa, the main species that are cultivated are catfish and tilapia. Of course, we have a few farmers doing trout, I think, and shrimps. But as you can see, 83% of the production, maybe 85%, is tilapia. And so then it gives us as players in the industry in terms of feed production, the direction of where we want to focus on, but obviously not forgetting the other species as we proceed as well. Next slide, please. Yeah, I mean, Yvonne talked about Food Tech Africa and how it started and the challenges that we seek to address, or we set up to address. And key up there was feeds. And under feeds, we were looking at feed availability, quality, but also price as well. I mean, there are a few other things listed there up to number 5, but also there was an aspect of technical know-how. And for me, I've highlighted this because it was not only technical know-how at the farmer's level in terms of how well to grow fish, but there was also a lack of technical know-how for, you know, feed manufacturers as well, in terms of how do you set up to produce good quality feed. Next slide, please. So if you look at Kenya and East Africa, there are 2 sources of feeds really. You can either import feeds or you can rely on local production. And I think for a very long time, before Food Tech Africa and the benefits or the fruits that we've been able to realize, those that had the muscles to import used to bring in feeds from all the way from Egypt, Europe, South America. And why were they doing that? It's because they were looking for quality feeds that can be able to help them to realize the performance that they wanted to get from their enterprises. And they were doing that because most of the feeds that were available locally, I mean, someone talked about some farmers feeding poultry feeds to tilapia, for example. It was because there was no alternative, or the few alternatives in terms of pelleted feeds that were available were not the extruded version. I think Mahmoud made it very clear what the benefits are between using an extruded pellet or just a straight pellet. And so floating is a critical aspect of this feed, and you can only achieve that when you have your food or your feed extruded. And because of Food Tech Africa and all of the other partners that were involved in there, I mean, we had a partner like Otovenga who availed the equipment that we as Unga invested in. The other very critical partner for us was Skretting, and we keep working very closely with them. I've talked about technical know-how of imparting knowledge and best practices to farmers. But for us, what was even more critical was how do we were getting into, you know, a new space. You've seen the graphs, we were used to doing dairy feeds and poultry feeds and all these other feeds. And we really had no idea of how to get into producing aqua feeds. And we didn't want to do this, you know, half-baked in quotes. So we had to look for the best partner for us that will be able to help us achieve production of a very good quality feed and hence avail it into the market. Next slide, please. So as you can see, in March of 2017, we commissioned our aqua feeds plant. It's here in Nairobi, industrial area. Dakar Road, if you want to be very specific. Most of the players in the industry have had an opportunity to visit with us. You've seen how the equipment is set and our production processes and ensuring that we end up with a very good quality product at the end of the day. So, I mean, like I've said, we are in partnership with Skretting and because they have been in the market for years, they know all aspects relating to from nutrition, from production, from maintenance of the equipment. So when we commissioned the plant, we had taken some of our production team to Egypt at Skretting for training so that they acquire the best knowledge for them to be able to produce aqua feeds. So we're still working very closely with Skretting. I mean, those that have purchased our product, you will see that on the bag, it's co-branded. We have our brand that is Fugo on the one side, and we have Skretting on the other side. And that shows the collaboration that we've had with Skretting to ensure that the product we issue out there is top quality. Next slide, please. Thank you. So what products are we availing into the market? Just to mention that our equipment or our establishment at the moment can be able to do grow out feeds. So that's 2 millimeter, 3 millimeter, and 4 millimeter. We've had a request from farmers to do crumbles. We've been able to do crumbles for the same, although we do not highly advise the use of crumbles because they want to feed them to hatchery, or starter feeds. There's a specific category of starter feeds that we believe will give you a lot more benefits. So even though we cannot produce the hatchery and starter feeds here, we do bring them through the partnership with Skretting, so they are available with us. And of course, I've talked about the grow-out feeds and the technical support that we get from Skretting as well. Now, catfish feeds, the initial plan was we will do tilapia and then quickly move to catfish feeds. We've seen that we do not have all the necessary ingredients to do high quality catfish feeds. We know that catfish are herbivores. Most of the protein sources we have locally are plant-based. We couldn't get good quality animal protein to include in catfish feeds. So at the moment, all catfish feeds, the whole range is coming from Skretting. There are plans and we're working with partners to ensure that we are able to get the necessary ingredients to input into catfish feeds. So very soon we'll be starting to produce catfish feeds locally so that farmers or our partners can be able to enjoy the same from within the country. Next slide, please. And so then how we are set up is from Unga, whether we produce that product like the grow out pellets I've talked about, or whether it is an imported product. We have two routes that we can be able to access these products. You can be able to access these products. So large farms that can be able to, command huge volumes, or groups of farmers that can be able to come together so that they can command those large volumes. We can be able to supply those direct to such. And what that does for the farmer is you cut out the middlemen, and then you can be able to get this product at, lesser price or a discounted price. But also you have this direct contact with us, and we can be able to work with you to see where can we be able to help you technically in terms of training or any support that will be required there. I really like groups because then, they help us with part of what we do as technical support. When we want to train farmers, if they're already in groups, it becomes easier, to reach them. It becomes easier to organize for those trainings, but also demonstrations as well in one of their farms. So it makes supporting such to be extremely efficient. And the second route is through our distributors. We do have upwards of 30 distributors spread across the country. And those distributors we would sell on to medium-sized farms, based on volumes that they can be able to buy. But also the other outlet from the distributors is through next level. We call them stockists. We have about 5,000 stockists spread across the country. And these will be able to sell to small farmers who would probably buy a couple of bags up to 5 or 10 bags at a go. So that's how our distribution model is organized. Next slide, please. And I think in terms of availing the product and the manufacturing, that's really what I can be able to say. This is my last slide. So technical support and trainings, I think I've alluded to this and how we try to map them with our route to consumer or availing the product to the end user. This is something that we do. We have a calendar of trainings that we put throughout the year, but sometimes we also have some targeted trainings. So in a certain region, farmers could be struggling with a certain aspect, and we organize such training just to, to help the farmers around that aspect. In-house within Unga, Gilbert is part of the team that helps us with these trainings as well. If we have a more technical, more, next level need in terms of trainings, of course, we work very closely with Skretting to ensure that we get this to the farmers. So that's all I had to share with you this early afternoon. Thank you very much, and back to you, Florine.
All right, thank you, Juma. You've received a couple of questions in the chat box. So I was planning to read, I'm getting some more. Planning to read some out to you. I think you've covered it a little bit already, but Musa has asked, what is Unga Feeds or Skretting doing to make their feeds more affordable to local farmers? Because, good quality feeds are relatively more expensive. I know you already mentioned something about middlemen, but I thought perhaps you could address this some further.
Yeah. Mahmoud or Gilbert will tell you expensive is relative. I think we like to say, is what you're buying value for money? I mean, if you want cheap feed, you can buy, I've talked about the mashes. I mean, people feeding poultry to tilapia, or people feeding non-extruded pellets to their tilapia. So the prices will definitely be lower, but are they going to give you the performance that you're looking for? So good quality feed is not cheap in quotes, but it should give you value for money at the end of the day. Having said that, I mean, our distribution model, as you've seen, we know that the small scale farmer who has a pond or two buys feed at the most expensive, because they can only access it through the very last man in the chain, who will be the stockist, and everybody on the chain has their margin that they load up there. So we try to encourage farmers to come into groups so that they can be able to command a certain volume, and then we can be able to, deliver to you directly. So we bypass all these middlemen, and you're able to get this feed at a slightly lower price than you would normally get there. But also on top of that, the biggest cost we've seen is the cost of protein into these diets. As we know, Kenya, for some reason, does not produce any soybeans. I have no idea why, but we bring all our soybeans from, at least in the region, I mean, from Uganda, we bring from Zambia, from Malawi. So there is that aspect of getting these products from elsewhere. There's freight costs and everything else. So that brings the cost of ingredients into the formulations to be quite expensive. What are we doing about it? We've started, our supply chain team has started working with potential producers. So what we are looking at is to try and contract farmers for local production, so that we can be able to get soya at least at a cheaper price. Now we're looking at soybeans, because we already have actually invested in a soya processing plant, which was commissioned sometime towards the end of 2019. So now we're trying to get, the next step is to get beans at the best price, so that we can be able to end up with soybean cake that is affordable. We're also working with partners to look at alternative protein sources, so not just soya now. There's a lot of interest in black soldier flies, and we have a few people that are already starting to produce that. It's not cheap yet because of the production volumes, but we think that at some point that's going to really help. That's what I can say for now. Maybe Mahmoud has something to add.
Sorry, I have to ask you to unmute.
Yes, thanks. I agree with Juma that a good quality feed at the end, it will be reflected in higher performance of the fish, lower FCR, which is at the end, it's more profitable for the farmer than that he thinks when he feeds with a low quality feed. Because with low quality feed, you will need maybe sometimes the double amount of feed, which is needed to get the same FCR, or let's say higher FCR. So I can give you an example. If you feed a diet, a feed which has 25% or 27% protein, and at the same time you feed another feed which is around 35% protein, then the FCR of this one would be around 2.5, the lower protein, and the FCR of the 35 would be around 1.2, 1.5. At the end, if you make the calculation, you will see that you are paying more for the to produce 1 kilogram of fish when you are using the lower quality feed. Now, how to make the feed more affordable? As Juma mentioned, also we are always looking at Skretting for alternative raw materials, alternative proteins. However, there is a pressure from the raw material market. So if soybean meal is increasing in price, other raw materials are increasing in price. Also, this will be reflected in the price of the feed. At the end, what matters is the quality. If you have a high quality feed, then you will be sure that you are meeting the requirements of the fish, highly digestible feed, and these both will help you to get a higher performance. I think this is more or less how can I say right now. And as Juma said, when you come as a group of farmers, like through the Aquaculture Association maybe, or a group of farmers, this will help you to give you a kind of more power to buy high quality feed instead of coming 1 or 2 farmers, of course.
Maybe also just to add on something on the same, how to reduce the cost of feed. One of the avenues where we have seen most of our farmers are losing money is when we are talking about the act of actual feeding, where you find that yes, we advise farmers that this is what's supposed to happen, but under given circumstances that are available, you find that maybe to rectify that, and is using the normal ratio that we advocate for. For feed, once you put it in water, you cannot be able to recover it back. So it's very important that when we are feeding, we are very keen. We ensure that the environment is correct, everything is up to standard, so that then as we put in feed into the water, we can be able to be sure that whatever has gone into the water, one, is completely utilized. That means also we have to have a good quality feed. At the same time also, by so doing, you find that you just give what is optimal, what is actually required by that particular fish. So you do not end up having any wastage, because the moment you have wastage in feed, that directly reflects on your FCR. Thank you.
So a good farm management, good feed management, and a good water quality will be sure reflected in a very good FCR and very good fish performance, which at the end will pay off with the higher quality feed.
Okay, thank you. I think a lot of people have questions, so I want to move into breakout rooms. There will be 3 rooms, 2 speakers in each room. I've set the timer on about 20 minutes. So after that, we'll return again to the whole group to close of plenary. But I will open the rooms now, and you should be able to go there. Okay,